We're going to do a little retrospective on Legend of Zelda with Legend of Leo. Welcome, Legend of Leo.
Yeah, you guys, if it's not obvious already, that's actually where I got the name from. My dog plus The Legend of Zelda.
Hey, Majora T. Okay, I'll tell the story. It's 2012, and they started to integrate Gmail into Google, into college classes. So I had a
Hmm.
Gmail for the first time, and it revealed my full government name, and to my whole class. And I think I had a YouTube thing going at that point. I was like, that's not happening. So I just
Yeah.
immediately changed it to my first initial, which was Teddy, for the T for Teddy, and then I just put my favorite Zelda game at the time, which was Majora's Mask, Majora T. Boom, we got a pun for an English classroom, and nobody understood what the hell it
Beautiful.
was about. But since then, yep, Majora T.
Yeah, and I was even wondering, like, what is this guy going for with his name? Like, why did he separate Majora and T? I didn't realize it was your first name's initial at first, so I was like, the majority? I don't know. I don't know where you're going with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, if I want to stretch it, I'll be like, you're part of the majority. It's a
Yeah.
majority, but whatever. I'll do
No,
this.
that stuff, yeah, okay, I was going to advise you not to, but you go ahead. You go for it. I think those slogans for communities are so bad, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can only say it like with like a half smile on my face.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah. It's like, oh, why am I doing this? Hi, guys.
Well, one thing we are going
Uh,
to do is dig deep into the mainline Zelda games. There are a lot we have not. We've played, some of them we've played, some of them we haven't. We'll talk about our experience with each, and you can let us know what you think of our opinions in the comments below, as well as your thoughts on the Zelda. Terry, I know what you think. You can still say it. Let's go back to 1986, the original The Legend of Zelda for the NES. Legend of Leo, what is your experience with The Legend of Zelda?
So I was very late to the party with this one. On the NES, the little hand-me-down console, had Zelda 2, not Zelda 1. So imagine for a little while when I thought that Zelda started out, it was a pretty, sophisticated game with Zelda 2. And then I started seeing people playing the original Zelda, and it just took me way too long to get to it, but I eventually did. And boy, oh boy, was it cryptic. Did not have a bad time with it. That said, I used some emulator tools and I used some guides, and I thought at least playing it with a way that I could navigate the world a little bit better. It was a good game. It was a good NES game. But when people say things like, oh, yeah, like Breath of the Wild is basically the first Zelda, but 3D, I kind of get it, but that's such a reach. It's not even worth making the comparison necessarily. They're so drastically different. Yeah, not too much to say about it other than it was a good NES game with a lot of hand holding required.
Yeah, that comment is a copy paste comment from people who have not played the NES one.
Hmm.
Probably
Yeah.
4 times out of 5. Uh, I rejected playing this game for a long time because of the cryptic thing. People said it was cryptic, and then NES difficulty in general, it's really hard. I recently started playing it on stream just to, kind of think around with it. I ended up having a lot of fun. Actually, I did buy a guide for this, just like some generic guide,
Yeah.
but I haven't needed to look at it yet. I've gotten 4 dungeons in. I have started trying to just, kind of play off stream too and to get to the 5th dungeon. And I think that's when the difficulty gets a bit hard. Some of these enemies, like, I don't know if you know that like dog looking one that like shoots thunderbolts out of its mouth. That thing takes like 4 hearts. And that's like half
Mm.
my life bar. And you always start with like back at the first cave with 3 hearts. Then you got to kill the little Octoroks, the red ones for hearts, or
They always hit you. It's like,
potions, and it's really a learning curve. Like, and I'm playing on Switch because the NES service, but
mhm.
it really is best to play it on the TV because playing it portable with like a weird control setup, I'm just not getting the right experience with it. But
Right.
I do respect it. I think if you look in terms of like origin games that it's very playable today. If you look back at like maybe the first Dragon Quest, okay, a little rough around the edges. The first Mario game,
Mhm.
it's classic but it's rough around the edges. If you look at this first Zelda game, it's rough, but I think in terms of purpose, the purpose of like kind of just going on an adventure and getting lost and
Yeah.
just messing with anything, it's fun. And I think if you've played other Zelda games, you'll appreciate it more. If you like other Zelda games.
And I can only imagine how much more fun the game would have been had you been inviting friends after school and you're trying to go through different maps and secrets together and trying to uncover them, and you're comparing what you found the next day. Like that would have taken the game up to the next level for sure. I will say, without spoiling you, the game, I'm grateful for one aspect of using a guide, because I was able to get some stuff for Link that I think in a regular playthrough, even if I made my way through every dungeon, I would not have gotten these things. And so we'll see, because I don't think that you're there yet since you're 4 dungeons in. But there comes a time when it's like, oh my God, they actually added this for Link in the first game. This is nice that you have these different tiers of things. So we'll see. I don't know if anyone wants to engage me on that in the comments, or you probably know what I'm talking about, but I hope you enjoy that. I hope you can find them without a guide, because it's really cool to see that, oh, that's unexpected in the first Zelda game, that these things are here.
Yeah, I mean, I like the upgradable stuff too. Like I have the upgraded sword, I have the upgraded boomerang.
Okay.
So
I was hinting at upgradable things. There's more upgradable things that I didn't expect in the game.
Yeah.
That was really surprising. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Good for you.
All right. Yeah. No. And the manual, you gotta read the manual. Like I obviously don't own it. I was gifted an NES recently, so eventually I will get to maybe ordering myself a copy and playing it that way. But I respect it. Let's go to the sequel, The Legend of Zelda 2. This was released for the NES Famicom in 1987. What are your experiences with Zelda 2? Or The Adventure of Link. I'm sorry, let me get it right.
Yeah, a lot of hardship with this game, a lot of confusion with it, and actually being dreadfully afraid of it as a kid. So just being in the overworld and having these monsters swarming you, and I don't think the path actually made you safe. You weren't guaranteed to get to your next destination if you walked on the path, were you? Could be confusing some games here, or maybe I just stupidly walked off the path. I would do that. And so I didn't get too far as a kid, and I haven't replayed it as far as I would like to as an adult either. Funny enough, the most experience I have with Zelda 2 and its dungeons and bosses are in this little 3DS game. I think the order of the words here, NES Ultimate Remix. So the North American version that we have for the 3DS is a great compilation of these reworked older titles, and you just play little segments of levels and bits of levels, the Balloon Fighter and Kirby and Excite Bike and Zelda 2. And I'm happy to say that at least for some of the Zelda 2 challenges, I'm the #1 time holder. Yeah, so if any of you have NES Ultimate Remix, even if you pirate it, you'll see on some of the Zelda levels somebody in first place or tied for first. Justin, yeah, that's me.
Hey,
have fun beating me. So I wish I could comment more on the actual game, but again, those little challenges, like those were some of the ones that I actually wanted to try harder on. They were a lot of fun.
You can still see leaderboards on 3DS?
Oh, okay. So this is all done prior to the eShop closing, but I would assume the records are still there. I don't know how that stuff works necessarily with servers.
Oh, well, let it be known. I believe you that you.
Thank you.
There, yeah, they're memorialized. I think that was probably my first exposure to it as well. Was on the 3DS through the Ultimate NES Remix, and I think I appreciated it. I think that was another game. I think I 100%ed going back to completion. That one was fun to complete. But I didn't really dabble in it until Switch. And I think my problem with it is that this one I felt was like harder than other games. And like, I think like maybe it's Link's reach with his sword is not great or something.
Yeah.
But when you go into those like combat sections, I kept getting like smushed. And like when you have that compulsion to just like use a save state because it's there, that's what I was feeling when I was playing it. And I didn't really like that. So I just dropped it. So maybe it's just been the wrong time, wrong format. But I think if I played like an original cartridge version, maybe I would appreciate it more.
Yeah, something about it, I haven't put my finger on it. It feels tough to go back to. I think because I know that it's a little bit of a time investment, knowing the system is involved, and it is a bit of a longer game for the NES. Now, I still don't think it would be that long of a game, but when we purposefully go back to the past to play some bad games, and sorry guys, I'm calling it a bad game, but maybe when we know that we're going to do that, it's just like, oh, it'll be on the very end of my backlog. I don't know.
Good for you, man. I always start with those. But you have that problem too. You start from the beginning of the series.
Yeah, but thankfully my Zelda chronology is so broken up because like I started Zelda 2 and then next I played Ocarina of Time. So I'm not, as obsessed about having to play the series in chronological order.
Okay. Fair enough. And good for you. Yeah, we can skip this for now. Let's go to another one that is more critically acclaimed, and that is 1991's A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Let's link to our past. What's your Link to the Past, Mr. Legend of Leo?
Sorry, everybody. Confession moment. This is one that I haven't played yet. All right,
okay, I like that phrasing.
Yeah. No, because, if I'm going to rank the series properly, which I plan on doing, I got to play it. And I will say I'm just really looking forward to it because regardless of what I just said about Zelda 2, look, if the game is good, I don't mind playing an older game. It's just got to impress me. So I want to hear you and be impressed by it.
Here's the internet's wrongest opinion time with Teddy. Yeah, it's fine. It's a good game. It's a good game. I like it.
Without playing it, I believe you.
There we go. I think the other later entries have a bit more personality. One thing that kind of drives me nuts is, I appreciate just the overall experience and aesthetic. Every dungeon has the same music. I think music is a big thing for me with Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just feels like classic, that's good. It feels like classic Zelda, but it's also kind of just maybe an origin point. So I think other Zeldas, even 2D over the top Zeldas, have done it better since. I like the bosses; they're pretty good, and I think just overall, the characters and some of the staples are really good. I first played this on the GBA, and I think that was a really cool way to play it. Just being somebody who's invested a lot into the series, we'll go down this list, but I could tell you other ones I think have done elements of the same better. Yeah.
I didn't know there was a GBA version of A Link to the Past. Okay.
They had GBA, I don't know exactly what they were called, but Super Nintendo ports, and I never owned a Super Nintendo. And it was my first way of playing a lot of games, Donkey Kong Country, Link to the Past, and yeah, that always stuck with me, just going through the sewers and having the guards chase you. Something about being chased by those dreary looking guards. It made an impression.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we could at least credit it with the first instance of the Fairy's Fountain theme. Maybe. Did it do that? Because when you mentioned music, I'm surprised that it had the same recycled dungeon music. But whenever people talk about the best version of Fairy's Fountain, I always hear people say, the original Link to the Past. It's at least they introduced it there.
But there was a Fairy Fountain in the NES version.
Yeah, I also think that claim that it's the original might be false. Sorry, I don't fact check everything that I read.
I believe you. This is a podcast about believing each other. Okay?
Yeah, good. And I'm just believing some randoms on the internet right now. So, interesting. First time ever. Okay, sure.
Thank you, Redditor. I believe you.
Yeah.
Let's go forward a few years to the future. Link to the Future. 1993, Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. Let's go.
Game Boy and then Game Boy Color, where I played it. So not original copy. This was also one I went back to play. And boy, oh boy, is it okay if I name drop another YouTuber here? He's ancient.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Back in the time of liking Let's Plays, I was following along with this guy, H.C. Bailey. Now, that is one who maybe half of people on YouTube who game have heard of before. And so he's playing this game, Link's Awakening. And I thought, you know what? I love Zelda. I'm going to go try this game. And a lot of what you said is true. This was, I can't even remember if it was my first 2D Zelda now, because I've played a few. But what is it when And also, I guess one more thing about A Link to the Past. Maybe it's one of those you had to be there games, right? Like a Chrono Trigger or something. It's like when we go back and we play these games, they're just not hitting as hard as they ought to, or they have for other people. Maybe we had to be there. So, Link's Awakening,
Awakening.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh my
We're
God.
awake for
The
this one.
Windfish. Yeah. Really cool seeing a lot of the characters that I recognize from the 3D games. Just how can you play a game like that and not feel like it is a diluted experience, a watered down experience of the 3D games? You just want a little bit more from the combat. But I guess the 2D games, they have their perks in that exploring areas is more maze-like, more labyrinthian. And so that's just a different feeling to the game. And for me, it's a little bit worse than having the open 3D space. But, sorry, all of this just to say that it was fine. I could go on and on, but why waste time with a smaller title?
Yeah, Link's Awakening was fine. It's cute. I would say. I guess it's like the Mario 2. It's like the
Yeah.
non-traditional Zelda. It's got Mario in there.
And you are dreaming when you play it.
Yeah.
Or, oops, sorry.
No, come on. It's obvious. It's in the intro.
Uh,
Yeah. I do love, I think, just like the characters, like,
yeah.
and the music is really good.
Yes.
And then I actually, so I played this Game Boy one on a Game Boy Color. So I think there's like a misunderstanding about Game Boy games that they're all black and white or puke green. But when you put this in a Game Boy Color, it actually plays in monochromatic, like different like shades of like either green, red, or blue. I don't know if you played the original Pokemons that way. They're Game Boy
And
games.
if you did like select an A or something, you could change the palette.
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, there we go. A little trick for you new gamers out there.
I thought that's what you were talking about. Okay. So you say just by default when you have the cartridge in, you actually get a little bit of a prettier color palette.
I had an atomic purple Game Boy Color that I would play this
Yeah.
and Pokemon on, and yeah, I thought it was a great looking game. I had my worm light.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Car rides.
But the problem is that these services, when you go and play them, I don't know about the Switch, but with the 3DS, when you would download the Game Boy games, you would download the black and white versions. And then later in '98, they'd make DX, which had the
Yeah.
added colors. I actually prefer the way the Game Boy one looks. Weirdly enough,
Cool.
but
No,
the game
it's
itself is it's just fine. The dungeons,
Yeah.
I don't think the puzzles are that great. I do like. There's one dungeon I really like. It's Dungeon 7, and it's like you got to like break the 4 pillars in the dungeon, and then it comes caving down. And you fight like this evil boss on top of the castle. It's very different.
One thing about some of these 2D games, and I don't want to jump ahead, but let's just take, for example, exploring some of the caves. Like, I think they're really well done in Link's Awakening. And right now, I'm actually picturing Link's Awakening for the Switch, the remake, which looks phenomenal. And part of the reason why I bought the game was just to support a remake in that style. Yeah, I bought it for the visuals alone, and I'm one of the people who think this is a beautiful game. So just up until clearing the first dungeon in the remake, the caves are actually fairly sophisticated if they are a one-for-one remake as far as structure goes. I think that's like, oh, this is really nice. But once you've seen a 2D cave in Zelda, I feel like you've kind of seen them all. It just maybe they can throw a few different tools at you, but yeah, I guess I just have a threshold, a patience limit when it comes to 2D games, and I go back to one every once in a while, and then I need a long break from it. Yeah, it's a fine game.
I think the thing about Link to the Past is there's like not as much puzzly stuff. I think it's more combat centric, so you may actually like that more.
Yeah, at least it's very quick too. Not even being able to remember the differences, but on the remake, just getting as far as clearing the first dungeon, like I said, I think I did that in under an hour, and that was talking to every NPC in the village. That was doing the first little side quest thing or whatever. So it's a nice quick game, and not to disincentivize anyone from playing the game or dissuade anyone from playing it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
it's cute. It's charming.
This is about us.
Yeah.
It's not about them. No.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. And these are just our opinions. So
Yeah.
let's go forward 5 years to Everybody's favorite and least favorite. You cannot have a right opinion no matter what, unless you're Terry.
Is it
It's
that one
it's
behind you?
it's actually not because this is a homebrew, but it's a homebrew of the same game that we are talking about, The Legend of Zelda
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time.
All right. Hey, I'm one of those people. It's right at the top of my list.
Woo!
It's and look, so many things done right, and yeah, maybe it feels a little bit clunky aiming with the C. You know,
Z trigger.
oops, I haven't played in a long time. No, the auto lock is great, but how do you actually aim the bow? I think you
Z
hold
up.
down you press it to equip your
Oh
bow,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you're in that menu, or you're in that UI with the cursor, right? The
yeah. That makes
reticle.
sense.
Yeah, and maybe some of that stuff feel a little bit clinky, but I can't even speak right now. Clinky. But boy, everything about the game, from the dungeons to the rewards during them, the variety and progression, the way that you can route the game. And I think another thing that's really great is it's always a tool, a new item to complete the dungeon, and then completing the dungeon. But that never gets stale. All right. I mean, if you agree that it's a good game with me, then you're going to agree that it doesn't get stale. It just feels like every time you get a new item, because they're so drastically different in their usage, it feels like it just livens up the experience again, combined with a little bit of backtracking because you've unlocked new areas. Yeah, Ocarina of Time, I think, is going to be one of those timeless games. So for me, it's a solid, 9 out of 10, man. I really like it, man. Just I got to reserve the 10 for some other games.
So I'll be accused of being biased here, which I understand, but it's my first or second video game I've ever owned and played. I played it on a Christmas day. I started the day with Pokemon Snap with my dad, and then I went on and played Ocarina of Time, pretty much the rest of the week. Got as far as the Water Temple, and and then I played it again years later and have beaten it many times since then. I have three, complete files on my 3DS, and I used to play it annually. But I think this is a fantastic game, and a lot of people don't understand why, because they think it's aged poorly. I can understand that games have done things like, targeting better, but are you playing a game only for targeting? Maybe, not me. I'm not a Call of Duty guy. I played.
I think I was just playing devil's advocate at that point. I don't know why I even said that.
And when I say you, I don't mean you. I just mean like a lot of people who are going to bash on Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I think one thing people maybe don't get is just how cinematic it is.
Yes. From the very beginning, draws you right in.
And I think another thing people maybe can't do is put themselves in Link's shoes. And this game very literally does that from the moment that, Navi, you're looking through her freaking whatever fairy eyes those are.
Her perspective, yeah.
Yeah, and then she goes flying in, and see, that's all cinematography. It's just part of the storytelling, and it's so emotional. It's a very it's not that everyone's gonna have a heartfelt experience with it, but if it resonates with you, it can be such a fantastic experience.
Well, think of some of the music in those early portions of the game, and Ganon, when you see him riding out in the storm, the crashes of the thunder and the lightning are so loud and so crisp, and it's N64, but boy, I think they sounded brilliant, and they add to the atmosphere, which draws you more into the story. And just those little details make you appreciate the cinematography. And if I throw this at you, you're instantly going to recall the Deku Tree scene. But those heavy string notes, the da 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 da, right, with the heavy strings that they use there. Yeah, the music in the game is perfectly paired with the cinematics.
Oh, you're doing the dark,
scenes.
like the death of the Deku Tree, or like when he's just telling you the sad story or something. Oh,
I think both. Yeah, but
yeah.
Suckers haven't played it yet.
That's on you. You watched the Zelda retrospective.
But to what you said, though, where it can invoke a lot of those emotions, it can do those really early on because, hey, no need to worry about spoilers, guys. That's like the first dungeon of the game. It's a tutorial dungeon, and it already builds you up, establishes Link's friends and his comrades and everything. And you even learn a little bit about the dynamic of him living there as opposed to the other people there. And then the Deku Tree, who everyone looks up to. It's like, geez, they threw that us in the first dungeon.
Dude, we could do a whole. Maybe we will someday do a
Yeah.
whole video on just the masterpiece or the
Yeah.
masterful storytelling in Ocarina of Time.
And I'm sorry to take over your talking portion for this game, but I'll throw it back to you with this lead-in question. Is it you had to be there game? Like, are we just looking at this right now with rose-tinted glasses, or it really is? I would love to hear people who played it 5 years later, 10 years later, or something.
My friend Tony did not play video games, and I haven't kept up with him in a long time. But he eventually what he would play was like your PC games and stuff. And I think I just like we hung out at my house and we played the N64 version for a little bit, and he ended up getting a 3DS. And every time I saw him, he'd be playing Ocarina of Time 3D.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think it's had to be there. I think it's real, recognize real. Like you got,
If Tony likes it, Tony, you don't mess with that.
you don't
for
mess
sure.
with Tony.
Oh no way, you don't mess with Tony. No.
I'm sorry, Tony.
Yeah, definitely gonna be able to go on about that game more, but we could also save it for the sequel.
Yeah, which is 2 years later, the new millennium, 2000s, Majora's Mask. Let's go.
All right. Well, I've got my own Christmas Day story with this game, which I've told repeatedly now. I don't know if you want to hear it or if I should repeat it again.
I want the
But,
Christmas story.
All right.
And I'm not talking about the movie. Oh no, I froze The Legend of Leo. We were gonna get a Christmas story. What happened? You froze. Okay, he's back. Is he back? Oh no. What?
Huh?
No, are you back? Is he here?
It is my internet. Okay, now I'm back and now you're back. Okay, sorry, that was me. I'm sorry.
The cliffhangerist of the cliffhanger.
Yeah, Christmas Day did not go
You
so
froze.
well. No.
Okay.
All right. I got to lay the groundwork here like I always do. And we had a little tradition where on Christmas Eve, the kids would get to open a present. And usually we had a pretty good idea. The parents might a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I think you guys would really like that one tonight. And usually what we opened was dictated by my brother and I. It was usually video game focused. And so that one night where we opened up Majora's Mask, and me being the youngest in the family, I get my first turn with the game. I feel like I got shut off pretty quickly and told to go to bed a little bit too early that night. So, I had a great time in Clocktown, and I think I messed around trying to get the fairies, and it's crazy because as a kid, that seemed like a whole adventure unto itself.
Yeah.
And then if you go back and you replay the game, it's like that's 20 to 40 minutes tops, right? Just to get your first transformation. I woke up the next day. My brother breezed past that. He was so far ahead of me, but there was so much enjoyment in keeping up with his adventure and playing it for myself. And we were people who loved having the game and the strategy guide. So I guess we were completionists from an early age. Things like the time mechanic bothering people and making them anxious, that's a you problem that never bothered me with my handy dandy guide. And just so many items. Every time I replay the game, I appreciate everything the same way, if not more. The gilded sword is so cool. You know what? If I have to describe elements from this game, this is the cool Zelda game. Fierce Deity is so cool. The gilded sword is so cool. Embodying the different spirits. And these are like legendary warriors. For the longest time, I had Mikau, I think that's how you pronounce the Zora warrior, as my profile picture in all kinds of online avatars. So just obsessed. Oh my God, I wish I could show you my keyboard. Teddy, I hope you don't mind this. I'm going to move my microphone briefly. Okay. This, for the Majora's Mask fans, I have to do this, okay? This is my SteelSeries keyboard. And there's a little piece here where you can add your own pixel art.
Wow.
Can you tell what those are?
That's a Deku mask, and then it's a little blurry. I think that's a Keaton mask at the end.
It's the four heroes. The Fierce Deity, who I just mentioned, I can was the fourth hero, plus a Keaton mask. Yeah, like my Majora's Mask obsession. It was my favorite Zelda game up until beating Tears of the Kingdom. and it's never going to lose that special place as either a like a 1B, a 1A and 1B favorite games. Boy, oh boy, I think we can both hog the spotlight with this game, and I'll just throw it back to you. And we're going to have to talk about the duology of the N64 Zeldas at some point for sure. I just want to gush endlessly.
Absolutely. I'm here for it. Gush away.
Oh,
Majora's Mask, talk about a game with impact. I think for a single player adventure, 3D exploration game, it's just hit the mark. I own the guide as well. I don't, maybe they just sold it with the guide or something, because I don't know. When I had checked my guide years later, I had X marks as like, I literally marked up my guide, every mask, I played the game multiple times, but surprisingly not as much as Ocarina of Time. I think I just don't want to like ruin it for myself. I don't know.
yeah.
And then
It's a rich experience. It's not like you need to replay it every year because so many of the events are so memorable, right?
yeah, and so that Song of Healing, sometimes I just play that, and just because like I'm in a weird space or something right now, and I'm just like, yeah, this just calms me. This is just
Heals
nice.
you.
Yeah, it just does what it does in the game, and it's like
Yeah.
you really feel like everyone's got problems. It's so like relatable. I don't know. It's weird because it's a fantasy. A bunch of fantastical stuff happening. The moon is crashing. But everyone's got their problems. And they can't be bothered. It's very much like the world today. Um, it's a great game. I have a lot of appreciation for it, and some people say a common sentiment on the internet is like, I wouldn't let my kids play this game, it's too dark or something. I don't understand where that comes from.
No.
Like, they say it's like it's like a nightmare or something. Like I just don't because you've got like way worse games out there. Like, what's so bad about Majora's Mask? It makes you think.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the cruelty of the world. Like, that's, as a kid, like, you should be blessed to be having such deep thought about playing a video game.
Yeah, it's your honor to play that game.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm no authoritative psychologist or anything, but let me just assuage the fears of all the people who think that. The reason why you maybe interpret it as too extreme for kids is just because you are viewing the game through an adult lens. And take it from someone who played the game as a kid, that stuff is not impactful the same way it is to you when you're older. You don't notice it. It's like having a kid and an adult watching The Simpsons together. Like, adult jokes, kid humor. You're like, that's weird. I never heard that one before.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. You know what? The 3DS kind of brought it back into the spotlight when they made that remaster. But I hear there's a better HD polished version of the game that you can play. I'll direct you to that if that's something you're into. I'm not a PC guy, so I can't really experience that.
Well, and I'm the kind of person who, when I replay a game because I love it, I replay the original version that I loved. Very rarely do I stray from that. Usually, actually, if I had problems with the original. Although, but hey, share it. At the very least, I'm curious. I want to see what people have done. And have you watched people making Majora's Mask short films in Unity? And those are on YouTube?
Yeah.
I've been told to watch those, and I still haven't. So I don't know, just some more content for.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the watch if you got a couple minutes.
Sure.
To my understanding, because I played the 3DS one, they gimped a couple of things, or like well, first off, I think they made it too easy with like the stones. I think the Bomber's Notebook is not as satisfying. I remember being more satisfying in the N64 one, less like spelled out. It feels very hand-holdy on the 3DS. Yeah. And then something about like swimming as the Zora is weird. Yeah,
I think that is one where I heard, like, of all the improvements they made, this is the one that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Haven't played it yet, so we'll see.
I still got my 64 here, so.
That's the best way to do it, man. Best way to play it, N64. I know there's going to be... Oh, did it ever bother you, by the way, playing an adventure that grand on the 3DS screen? Or that's... No issues with that, with it being shrunken down.
I've only played Majora's Mask once on 3DS, but my first 3DS was the XL model, so it was the biggest screens. And I
Okay.
have the 2DS XL. I think it's the same size screen. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, no, given the option, I'll go with the TV now. At one point, I might have
Yeah.
gone the handheld, but I'm kind of past those days.
Yeah, and this, I mean, I've got my 3DS here for a variety of games, but this might sound silly. I don't really want to replay Grand Adventures on a tiny screen.
I don't blame you. Well, let's keep going with these adventures. We got like another
Yeah.
23 years here, so maybe we can.
Oops.
I don't think we're going to spend as much time on a lot of these, so
No.
we'll kind of rapid fire them. Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages 2001. Played it?
Pass.
Damn.
No, I'll keep it short and simple for you. Pass.
These are worth playing. I hope they do remake it one day. I think I like that they're two separate games. I like Capcom's direction with it. It's great combat and decent puzzles for the dungeons. They make you think. I don't
Wait.
think you need a guide for it.
I didn't even know that Capcom did those too. I thought Capcom only did Minish Cap. Ah.
Yeah, these were their first ones, and it's a really good direction for it. So
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm more interested now.
Ages, start with Ages. That's my recommendation. More playable. Seasons is a little more convoluted, but really cool premises. So I'll just go into it briefly. In Oracle of Seasons, the seasons are all array. So if you're walking the different like panels, like in the overworld map, the season will change between winter, spring, autumn, and summer, and then that carries with it like different changes to the terrain. So you get a rod that changes the season to what you want, but you have to go unlock that season from like certain temples and stuff. And then Oracle of Ages is that time is messed up, and Nehru is like, and the two spirits are Din and Nehru in each of the corresponding games. And Nehru, the goddess of time, is kidnapped, I think by Vati. I don't remember exactly. I just played this. I should know.
That's okay.
And the rift between past and present is messing everything up. So you have to teleport, to see the landscape in the past versus in the present. And it's actually really seamless. At some points, you can just literally teleport to the past at any point on the map with the right item. So you get this like harp, another musically inclined game. Very Ocarina of Time in 2D-esque. So pretty cool.
Okay. Well, one that I'll get to at some point. And I think I'll enjoy it more than I'd previously anticipated.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one. 2002, Four Swords.
Oh, okay, that counts here. Four Swords, I may have tried it with a buddy of mine, but not a game that we played through. So that's one that's better off just passing for me.
I'll take a pass on that. I play the 3DS download, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go same year, Wind Waker.
Okay. Wind Waker is phenomenal, and I enjoyed it from the beginning. Going back to it, I still think it's a great game. I know a lot of people only started to appreciate it with the HD remake on wherever that came from, Wii U, and just a different game. Like I didn't experience the same slowed down pace and the same tedium in the Great Sea as other people have complained about. I thought the whole time it was a grand adventure, and maybe because I'm always keeping up with different quests as I went out and ventured out on the sea, even towards the end of the game, where maybe for some people there's a lot of, oh, go here, go there. I don't know. It was a fun mechanic for me, and there's always little things to do, new things to see, and some of the interactive elements on the map and in the sea, right? Like the different fights, something like pick you up in a hurricane, in a twister. You might get to engage an enemy with your cannons. So another really great game. It's hard to qualify or for people, the different greatness among these titles, but Wind Waker has to be up there with Ocarina of Time for a game that people should play.
Yeah, this one is beautiful. Like I think the idea of Toon Link is genius. I think what just hampered it was that I think it's 2000 or 2001, they had the E3 trailer for Twilight Princess, and it was like one of the best, E3 trailers of all time. And then we got Wind Waker, and that was like a jab in the face to a lot of people. And maybe I'm getting the years wrong, but I remember that being like a big thing.
Yeah, at the very least, I also recall seeing some kind of like nicer, more realistic tech demo, and then that was people's expectation. Well, sorry, but if you didn't play Wind Waker, you missed out on a good game.
That's
Sucks
true.
for you.
That's true. Wind Waker. I hope they bring it back to Switch or something. I don't want to boot up my Wii U.
Yeah.
Let's go 2004. We're going to skip Four Swords Adventure. Let's go Minish Cap.
Yeah, Minish Cap, a lot of cool little elements in there and a really great world. But it's hard to say that any of the actual gameplay or dungeons are memorable. I can't recall much other than some scenes in my head and the look of the game. And really cool going between macro and micro. Like there's a few of us who really appreciate that sort of element and aesthetic in games. But yeah, God, unfortunately, the thing that I remember the most is the look of the game, not the gameplay.
Damn. Minish Cap is a Minish Pass. I haven't played it, and I don't know. I haven't felt the compulsion. It's my friend Spencer's. It's one of his favorites of the Zeldas. So I'll try it. But let's go back to the GameCube. Twilight Princess, 2006.
All right. So this is one that I actually played on the Wii. And I think this was when I recognized that they ruined Link by making him right-handed. I was willing to play with the Wii with my left hand just so Link could stay, canonically left-handed. Mm-hmm. But Twilight Princess, remember a buddy of mine back in high school, it ended up being his favorite Zelda game at the time anyways. And for me, it was just a great game that I played. But Hyrule Field, for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, it felt smaller than Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field. It felt like also Twilight Princess suffered from trying to be an Ocarina of Time reboot or clone. Like they didn't want to do the same kind of stylistic choices, neither in the exploration nor certainly not the look that they did with Wind Waker. And they didn't necessarily want to have the same hub style world of Majora's Mask or Clock Tower. I'm referring to that as the hub. So it just kind of felt like an Ocarina of Time clone. And at the end of the day, when I finished both games and looking back, it's like, well, I think I just enjoyed and appreciated Ocarina of Time more. Not a bad game, but just they're so similar, in my opinion.
I think I pinned down just now my problem with Twilight Princess, and it's not to say it's a bad game. It's a great game. I've never finished it. I've tried it many times. I owned it on GameCube. I owned the Wii version. What I like about the transformations in Majora's Mask is their options. If I want to, I can transform to a Deku Scrub. I mean, aside from the very beginning of the game. And go float around and take on the temple, or I can just go get heart pieces. In Twilight Princess, Wolf Link is forced on you the entire game, and you're replaying the same sections. And when you're in Wolf Link's world, it's really not a pleasant place to be. It's a very confined area, and you're hunting these scarabs, and you're like a ethereal spirit. It's I think it stifles it a little bit. I get the feeling. Yeah. I get what they're going for. I don't know if I've ever fully appreciated it.
Twilight Princess, building off of what you just said, may have just released too early. Like it could be a kind of game that if they did it today and they had more technological capabilities to expand that shadowy realm, to flesh out some of the items like the spinner, that was just so underutilized. Give them a little more time, give them some of the creative ideas that they've had with the new open world games to implement spinner portions in the overworld a little bit better. That would be better. I think, the N64 titles, a lot of the weapons and the masks, they were seamlessly integrated into so many parts of the overworld. And I just can't recall that same kind of integration for a lot of the items that you had in Twilight Princess. So
when they showed the trailer, it was Link. It was so cool. It was like adult Link. You get to play a game as adult Link. So when you get this game, you want to play as adult Link. When you get the game, you start up and then, okay, boom, you turn into a wolf. It sucks for you. Go figure it out. Here's Midna. She's going to tease you. Whatever. So
we're not even picking, by the way, on some of the things that I've heard most people complain about on the internet. Oh, the really long tutorial. Oh, the game takes so long to get going. Like, honestly, that doesn't necessarily matter if the heart of the game, if the core parts of the game draw you in. So, yeah, no, not the conventional complaints about the game, just a game that feels like it underachieved.
Mm-hmm. can agree to that.
Mm.
Let's turn the time with the Hourglass of Phantoms. Phantom Hourglass, 2007. Pass.
No, no, I beat it. I just
Oh,
can't tell you anything about it.
this had the ship. Or was you sailing? You mapped
Yeah,
it
that
out
was the
on
one
the
where you're sailing
DS.
around, and I think I was ready to just like throw my DS against the wall when you had to close the screen for one of the puzzles. It's like, why would you do that to me? It's like, imagine if a traditional Zelda game, you had to turn the console off to beat the puzzle.
Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, actually? Oh God,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Well, it's similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's not the thing that ruined the game for me. I think it's just one of those experiences where if I personally want to get the most out of an adventure game, it's going to have to be quite special on that smaller screen. And maybe the little portable Zeldas like that, maybe they just have to be a different style of Zelda, like more text-based spin-off. Or maybe the fact is the ship stuff just sucked and I can't remember.
Yeah, you had Wind Waker at that point, so there's better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
One thing you did not have was Link on Trains. Link on Trains, Spirit Tracks, 2009.
Yeah, gonna have to pass.
Okay, I played it, and then I think you had to blow into the microphone on your DS to play the flute, but you had to like move the flute. I don't remember. It was like
Oh, so it's like a harmonica flute. Cool.
yes, except you're using the DS microphone, and so and also controlling Link, you only do it with the stylus. You don't control him like thumbstick or D-pad and buttons.
Those
It's,
games.
I mean, it's built for it. The gameplay and the mechanics. I just can't say it's fun. I can't say it works well. Do I like holding my DS like this? No. It's awful.
Is it a hate it or love it game? Like, is there enough there where people can love it? Or is it just, no, sorry, guys just didn't execute again?
Okay, so the thing is, you have Wind Waker at that point. So even though the concept is different and the train is cool, Wind Waker just does the style better, much better.
Mm-hmm.
Wind Waker's a great game. Spirit Tracks, you can't say is a great game. It could be fine, but it's nobody's favorite.
And maybe I'm also wrong in pinpointing the issue as they shouldn't be made for little portable consoles because so many people love Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on little portable consoles. So maybe I'm wrong in that assessment, but
the DS was a weird era, it's the transit, like I don't know. So
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
you're
right.
doing 3D games on like your first N64 portable prototype. So.
When they get pixelated, they look like wireframes or something. So yeah,
it's all blocky and chunky. Yeah. Wow. Speaking of the handheld, we are going to Ocarina of Time 3D 2011.
Oh, these are coming up separately.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just touch on this briefly.
Yeah, just another pass because whenever I replay Ocarina of Time, it's on the original, and I've replayed Master Quest, so that's it.
The Master Quest on the 3DS version is not just the game inverted. They scrambled all of the dungeons.
Oh, cool.
So I've never beaten that Master Quest. It's actually quite different and like a brain mess because you're so used to like I thought the small key was there or like the boomerang and it's not. So
I think that is the original Master Quest. News to me if I played a game and it was only mirrored as the difference, but I don't think so. I think in what I played on the GameCube, the bonus content that came with Wind Waker pre-order, that little copy of Master Quest, I at least remember the Spirit Temple had different collection goals. I think I was collecting silver rupees for different purposes and things like that. But boy, oh boy, we're talking a long time ago now.
So the GameCube was weird because there were like two Master Quests. There was one that was like an Ocarina of Time Master Quest thing, but then I maybe it's not another Master Quest. Maybe it was just that, and then there was like the 4-disc collection or whatever. The one with like Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Ocarina, Majora's Mask, and the Wind Waker demo. That's like the
You know what I'm already anticipating some like stupid comment like, oh, what are these two talking about? They're not real fans. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Among all the hundreds of games that we played, we can't remember a few details from a few things in our favorite series. Sorry.
Listen, we don't have the internet at our fingertips. We just have each other, and we're doing the
Yeah,
best
we're
we can.
talking. This is a conversation. No phones, no computers.
Yeah, no angry texting at each other. Legend of Leo, how
No.
dare you? Majority. What are you talking about? Nah. It's all good. Skyward Sword on the Wii, 2011. Throw it in the towel.
What? Like, I want to say not a bad game, but sections that isolated, none of them were the most fun. It feels like they were dragged out and padded out too long with the way that you revisit them, and they were meant to just be really big areas. I remember, though, for such big areas, the side quests that would have filled out your exploration in there was lacking. Some of your side quests that took place in the sky, they were a little too cryptic for me. I don't know. It could be a me problem. But just another game that had a lot of interesting ideas but did not execute them well. And that same friend before who loved Twilight Princess, this is his favorite Zelda game. So Dylan, if you're watching, I'm not throwing you under the bus or anything, but Skyward Sword as a favorite game is wild, man. It's crazy.
Different folks, different strokes, and this one strokes something different. I do like it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I appreciate the exposition. I appreciate the orchestral nature of it. It's cool, and I guess it has narrative significance. It came with a CD, and sometimes I'll put it on. It's got like a really well put together OST. I think this was a 25-year anniversary celebration, and that's why you got two Zeldas in 2011. I played it on the Wii, but I think you need a Wii Motion Plus. So you had I had a Wii Mini. I didn't even think you could use the Wii Motion. Oh no, it did have the Wii Motion Plus. I think that's why they made the Wii Mini, so you could play Skyward Sword on it. It's weird. Only like a few games used it. It was fine playing on the Wii. I didn't love it. Jumping out of the water was horrible. Exploration wasn't great, which is usually why I like these games. But I did think the dungeons had depth and scope, and
yes, dungeons were good.
So I like that. And then some of the boss fights, I didn't like fighting whatever it's called, the madness, the darkness, the
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
That was bad.
Yeah, a terrible choice to do that. Did you actually like, though, the feel of the like I did. I thought, combat's not something I would complain about. Maybe they could have done more with it. But the fact that you were doing motion control combat was fine for me.
Yeah, it was well designed. I mean, I can still think back to some of those, the Deku Babas, like the ones that pop out. And
yeah.
And then their mouth will open like this or like this. And then you have to direct the sword strike that way, or like that pirate fight. That's really good. So,
and I think I remember also, do you roll bombs? Can you roll bombs in the game?
It's bomb.
Yeah. That was kind of cool. Yeah, there's unfortunately, because we're not going to spend so long about it, and we're not going to preface every game with it's a good game, but I mean, I think you and I, for pretty much every game that we've played here, we do like them more than we dislike them. And also, we have to consider the fact that the games that we're comparing to as the best in the Zelda series are phenomenal. They're masterpieces. So it's just a really tight competition here, and the more mistakes these games make, the more they'll get criticized. But yeah, Skyward Sword was a good game. It just needed a lot of work for you and for me. It so happens.
Well, I get that Switch port now, so
we'll see.
Yeah, it doesn't fix everything.
$70.
I'm gonna skip Wind Waker HD, and we can just go straight to A Link Between Worlds 2013.
And going chronologically, this is the last game that I'll have to play to do my ranking. Haven't played it yet.
Oh, okay. You should. It's a good game.
Oh, I will.
I've only played it once. I thought it was a little easy. I really like the art style. I thought I was going to think that mechanic was gimmicky, but it wasn't. The one where he it becomes a mural on the wall and then can pop back out. I actually think it's pretty well done. And I think if you're a Link to the Past fan, you probably appreciate it. But you're not. So, I don't know. Maybe play
Or
that
it'll be
first.
my Link to the Past. And that game can stay in the past, and A Link Between Worlds is like my good light and dark Zelda.
Link to the Past will be a Link to the Past, like real past.
Yeah, seriously.
The Link Between Worlds will be like, yeah, right in the past. So.
Yeah, the good era.
2015, we got Majora's Mask 3D. We'll skip that and go straight to Triforce Heroes.
Oh, wow. Well, at this point, I got no friends to play games with, so
Yeah, that's dead. That's been dead since they closed the eShop. And what were they? That was like a trend on 3DS. Was like the Triforce Heroes, the Final Fantasy 3-person thing. What is that system?
yeah, I don't know. And even games like I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but games like Crystal Chronicles, you're meant to get more out of them with multiplayer experiences. And, it's not bad that people are trying to push cooperative gaming, but it's really tough to do when you've got these historic franchises. People are expecting single player Zeldas. Sorry, I'm not ready to play a multiplayer Zelda with my buddies.
Yeah, Crystal Chronicles was the 4-person one on the PlayStation, right, or the GameCube, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's
But
not
it also
bad.
had spin-offs for portable consoles.
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. But there was one that was exactly the same, where it was like designed for 3-person puzzles, and it's just, I don't know. That's
Interesting.
and you're doing it on a system that already doesn't really have communication features.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what about like when you have to play on the GameCube with multiple people, and then people are also expected to plug in Game Boy Advances? I mean, come on.
yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. Some people love that,
Yeah.
but I'm not one of
Yeah.
them.
Me neither.
We're gonna skip Twilight Princess HD and go to 2017's Breath of the Wild.
Woo! Like you, I did not play this game upon release. I did not have a Switch at the time. And some friends very generously got me a Switch and Breath of the Wild for my birthday, maybe 2 years later. Right. I got it to play it in 2019 because it was my first year in a new apartment. I remember that. And oh man, just from not really being a gamer anymore to back in full swing. All the hours of free time spent on the sofa, just con- continuously just booting the game up so I could go back into that world and having fun with the puzzle and the physics, and every aspect of Breath of the Wild to me was amazing. That was a great game that for whatever reason didn't quite surpass Majora's Mask, but it was right up there. It was so good. So I might just keep my thoughts maybe for its sequel because they're so similar. But it was a great game.
It's just stupid commercial I keep hearing on some of these Apple podcasts. I don't know if there's like a sponsorship or something, but they're like, your grandson won't remember the video game you bought him, but he will remember that you put money in his stocks.
Oh my god.
I think that's such a dumb thing because I remember all the video games people have gotten me. For the most part. There's a couple exceptions, but I think you getting the game as a gift maybe lent it more importance to you, and maybe more like you're back in. It was the Switch game that you got. I was also gifted a Switch in 2019. My girlfriend bought it for me.
Yeah.
Right timing too, because 2020 there were no Switches.
Yeah.
I bought Breath of the Wild later, maybe later, late 2020. Just saw it and I was like, okay, I should buy it. I didn't have strong feelings I wasn't ready for it. And the next summer I was more ready for it, and I really dabbled in, and I think I spent a whole weekend just hours on hours exploring, and I think I found one of the first dungeons, although I don't even know if it is what number order it's supposed to be.
Right.
Which is kind of the point. I think I was just overwhelmed, and I was a little jaded because my expectation for Zelda, as somebody who's grown up with the 3D ones, is a linear Zelda. It's not this kind of big, open-ended Zelda. And also, like, kind of not story heavy, not story focused.
Story was the bare minimum just to hold it together, if that.
Yeah, it's there, but and I think I loved the character and the worlds of like the Zelda games up to that point. No, I mean, do they exist in some form and fashion? Yes. But I think it just missed some of the things that I I loved about previous entries, and I held it against it for a long time. I'm more open minded now. I wouldn't hold it against the game playing it.
Yeah.
I just know that I don't think I could ever put this above some of the most impactful games to me.
The same game done in a more linear style, a more traditional style, probably would have been amazing to you because you get to the familiar elements more quickly in that case. In the open world, you don't know if it's going to be 20 hours before you see Gorons or 40 hours before you see the Zora. But like after so long without a Zelda game and you're waiting to see some of those familiar things, that's probably where a lot of people fall off is just there's probably a type of player that needs those reminders, needs those nostalgic pieces, maybe.
And I don't
Or
want a directional arrow. I think that would probably ruin it. That would probably
no,
destroy
yeah.
it for me. But I also feel like if that's what I have to do to get that in this game, then maybe I just shouldn't play it. And I will play it still regardless, but I feel like I would be tarnishing my playthrough if I use a guide the first time, because every time I play it after, I'm going to know exactly where to go and just do that.
One thing I could say to counter that is just that you might purposefully avoid that known path, the familiar path, because there are, just almost limitless possibilities for how to approach the same location, even.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, these things, the DLC is so cheap. They have master mode, which is just restarting the game, a new file, and it's more difficult. But hey, they hooked me in, so I ended up playing the game twice over. And yeah, it was a completely different experience because I didn't want to do the dungeons in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4. I did something like 4, 2, 3, 1.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Or even if you just you're a competent gamer, so even if you used a guide, for example, for a little bit of the game, or even up until one dungeon, I think by that point you're just like, okay, I'm ready to go off the rails here.
Okay. No, I'm open minded. So when the time is right, I'll invest into
Yeah.
it. 2021 had Skyward Sword. I don't Skyward where I'm like
Cyborg Scorpion.
Cyborg Scorpion, the Zelda game where Link's a robot
Scorpion.
and yeah, it's the mummy.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Featuring Link goes
We're not
into
going
the
back to the mummy.
with The Rock. The Rock plays Link in the Zelda movie. No, we'll go to your favorite. You're the classic 2023 Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I'm crying already.
Oh my God. You might actually shed a tear if you play the game. If you see what happens with my girl Zelda, it's sad, man. So, Tears of the Kingdom builds off of everything that Breath of the Wild did. People, you know what? An interesting way to address this would be, because I've already talked about the game so many times, I'm going to do this a different way now. I will take complaints that I've seen and I will try to dispel them. So, someone who hadn't even played the game heard that the world was really similar. And I actually touched on my first video talking about Tears of the Kingdom that, I was even concerned that the overworld would be the exact same or too similar. But they have taken the existing mountains and they've hollowed them out. So, and they've also done some little arrangements on the actual overworld itself. But what happens is, also because one of the abilities you saw is Ascend, where you can go through the roof of something, you could traverse upward through any thick structure. There's less of the mountain climbing that really was one of the key elements of Breath of the Wild. And there's more going underground, going into the mountains. When you're ready to go up the mountain, you might ascend through the mountain. So that on its own makes you experience the world completely differently, in addition to the world being different. So people who are worried about, that aspect of the game, no, don't worry about it. And I mean, where do you want me to go with Tears of the Kingdom? Maybe I can answer a question or two about the game rather than
interrogation. How about that? Is it okay? Is it Minecraft?
No.
Okay,
but
it's not.
some aspects of it will make you start to perceive the world in Minecrafty ways again until you become adept with
Okay.
all of your abilities. And at that point, once you are adept with your abilities, it will be you're playing the game normally, you're exploring the game. Oh, I've encountered a problem. Now it's time to go into problem solving mode.
So you don't? Is there an obligation to build stuff? Like I'm confused about that.
Not necessarily, and the game makes that as easy as possible on you. Um, Man, so many ways where you can cheat builds, but I don't even think you have to. No, you don't have to use builds. Usually the builds are to just make certain terrain a little more accessible. But if you want to brute force something, you can brute force it with like, oh, I'm taking a no slip potion. Oh, I have my gear that helps me climb a little bit faster. I'm trying to think, are there any areas of the game where building is mandatory? I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
And the building that it throws at you for learning purposes in the tutorial island, really fun.
Okay. Do I have to play Breath of the Wild, or do I have to finish Breath of the Wild to appreciate, mostly appreciate the Tears of the Kingdom?
Not at all. Nope. No need to really pick that one apart either. I think it's just safe to say that not at all. You can jump straight into Tears of the Kingdom, and it's just going to be so much wow factor. Now, that same buddy, I'll bring him up for the last time in this video, who loves Skyward Sword, he stopped playing Tears of the Kingdom. He got, I don't know, what would have been like 40 to 60 hours in, and he also wanted more of the traditional Zelda experience. It was too big, too convoluted, too chaotic, too confusing. Can't think of any more C words right now. He ended up dropping the game at least temporarily, and that's unfortunate. But I think what I talked about at the start of this video with the scope of games today, what they went for is just ambitious scope and grandeur. So sure, if there's a type of gamer out there who that does not appeal to, a little unfortunate because you don't have those arrows pointing to where to go. And it might seem like, I don't know, I just wanted to go to that next destination. So I got on my horse and I was just ambushed. And then the weather changed and I didn't have my weather clothing. And so I had to turn around. It's like, okay, I get it. You're not prepared to take your time with the game. You're not prepared for its problem solving. Yeah. I could imagine the type of person who wouldn't enjoy it. But no, you do not need to play Breath of the Wild first. That's what made me go on this tangent.
I think an important thing for me when thinking about this series is thinking about, is this entry timeless? And there's a couple entries that I would make that case for. There's a bunch I wouldn't. I'm going to assume, or I'll guess, where you fall in the camp for this one, although it may be soon to call it timeless given that it's within the same year. I'm going to go on a hunch and say you would call it timeless. Is that accurate?
Yep. I
What
already
makes
have
it
somewhere.
timeless?
This is a game where the novelty of these abilities, especially if Nintendo decides to patent some of them, which that's a little something that I heard about going on right now. These abilities are so well executed in the game. And at first, it's like, ooh, I don't know, this is a little clunky. Oh, this is how you separate the building blocks. Okay, a little bit of time to become acclimated to the tools. That's all you need. And at that point, they feel like they're second nature to you. That manipulating these things with an invisible arm 20 feet in front of Link are just as easy as you swinging your sword. So there's that. The abilities are just so well designed that it doesn't matter if you're playing with them today. The concepts behind them are going to be fun in 20 and 40 years. The fact that it combines creativity with the classic Zelda stuff that we like, the puzzle solving, the problem solving, and all those elements. Now there's more of a creative element and like an open box or an out of the box element to that creativity as well. Think of some old puzzles where you have to shoot the frozen eyeball lock with a fire arrow because it had to also defrost it plus trigger it. Well, no, in this case, you want to use your rewind ability. Go ahead and use your rewind ability. Oh, you actually want to use something to make a little boat and then get there that way? Go ahead. Oh, you're going to use your Sage's ability and you're going to launch it off a ramp and it's going to hit the target. Okay, sure. So, yeah, timeless for the gameplay, certainly. And the exploration, just like how you have people today who go back to Oblivion or go back to Skyrim and they want to be in the world, that certainly is true of Tears of the Kingdom's world.
What
Ah,
makes?
and one more
Oh yeah, go
thing.
ahead.
Okay, this is probably important. You leave more of your mark in this world compared to Breath of the Wild. And I'll just, this doesn't really count as a spoiler, but there's one aspect where you get to buy and customize your house. Now, in my opinion, it's really bare bones, and I didn't bother messing around with it that much. But it's just an example, in addition to like some of the changes of the story and some of the changes in the dialogue, where, oh yeah, Link and you as the player character have left your mark on this world. I think that contributes to being timeless because for somebody playing the game decades apart, they get to come back to those aspects of it and the familiarity.
Okay. I guess just the last one. We talked earlier about how a lot of the AAA games coming out now can feel kind of samey. The completion elements are not like very good. Meanwhile, you're hailing the exploration as timeless. So how does the exploration in Tears of the Kingdom differentiate itself from other exploration and similar open world games?
Yeah, this is one where other people are probably going to have to chime in because I only play like one modern release per year. I can compare it to Elden Ring, and that's actually a good one because my gripe with Elden Ring's exploration is that for all of the space and land available for you to see, there really just isn't that much there that makes going to those nooks and crannies rewarding. And I mean, it's up to the player in Zelda to determine if a Korok is really a rewarding enough element. For me, it is. And part of that is just because I love puzzles, and every Korok is a different puzzle that I can engage with, as opposed to in other games. Oh, there's a sparkly spot on the ground, and when I press A on it, I get a garbage item that I already have 100 of. That's just something that people are going to have to value for themselves, evaluate for themselves. So for me, the exploration has appropriate rewards. You are actually benefiting when you go to those dark areas of the map.
Nice. Okay, that will conclude the interrogation. And that also concludes the timeline breakdown of all the
Yeah,
mainline
good
Zelda
job.
games. We did great. Any thoughts or impressions?
I have a comment that I'm going to turn into a question for you. And it's actually good here after I've heard what you said about Breath of the Wild, because you
Okay.
can answer this for me. So, the last group of people who I've heard about not enjoying Tears of the Kingdom, and by extension Breath of the Wild, are the people who want traditional dungeons. And in Breath of the Wild, I kind of got it. In Tears of the Kingdom, not really. There are enough temples, and in between the temples, there are honestly enough shrines, which are the main little puzzle huts, um, where, some of the longer shrines really are the equivalent of like 3 rooms in an Ocarina of Time dungeon. So I don't get where the desire and where the void is, where people still need this thirst for traditional dungeons satiated. But I'm wondering how you experience that, and if that's a problem for you in Breath of the Wild.
It's not just traditional dungeons. It's like a linear narrative. So, I mean, and Tears of the Kingdom may prove that wrong, but it's not just that dungeons and exploration are streamlined, but that my adventuring feels impactful. I think that's why, even those little things you do in Majora's Mask make you feel like you're going a long way for the people of this world. And, I, and part of the, and, I can't speak to Tears of the Kingdom because I'm checked out by that point. But, during the entire time of Breath of the Wild, and Miyamoto gaslit the shit out of the Zelda fan base saying, oh, we'll never do another traditional Zelda again.
Really?
Yeah, he said that after the success of Breath of the Wild. It's something along those lines.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
have the Google thing exactly, but I remember reading it and just being like, oh, "Excuse me, Miyamoto." Like,
Hey, and if you're telling me, it must be true.
yeah, believe everything. So, I mean, but I think you dispelled some of that for Tears of the Kingdom. So I mean, I'm open minded. at this point.
I can jump into that part right now and tell you that yes, thank God, compared to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom had more rewarding interactions with the NPCs, more involvement in their little towns and villages and stories and lives. That was lacking in Breath of the Wild for sure. There just needed to be more that brought you into the world. And I know what you mean from Majora's Mask, because it seems like everybody you interact with, not only do they have a role in that quest that you're engaging them in, but they belong in the world and they're affected by the goings on over the 3-day span. So Tears of the Kingdom has more of that, whereas Breath of the Wild definitely lacked in it.
Okay. Interesting.
But you don't know the dungeon thing then? People like I get your point about linearity, but this is why it's confusing to me. It's like, oh no, I miss the dungeons. And I'm just trying to think. I don't know, Dodongo's Cavern, multiple floors, the Windfall Temple in Majora's Mask, multiple floors and wind things, but those are in Tears of the Kingdom too.
Oh, my problems are not about the dungeons.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't align with the Zelda fan base, sadly. Sorry,
Yeah.
Reddit, but you know, I think I just wish for the fan base that they would accept each other's opinions or like experiences with the series more. And it goes not just to the Zelda fan base. It's just when I've interacted online with, you know, other Zelda fans, it's a
Final Fantasy.
what else? Dragon Quest, you know, it's just a very one-sided conversation. You can only have one opinion. Yeah. Oh, you know, this during the Breath of the Wild hype, this is the best game ever, you know, forget all other Zelda games. And to me, that's sacrilege. And it's like, let's value it, or at least meet in the middle somewhere, you know? So,
Yeah. Look at the technologies that these new games have brought us. How can you go back to something like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask or the 2D ones if you like those? It's like, well, no, you really can, because it's a different experience.
And you really can on your Switch now, like through the N64 service, you know, so shut up. You're paying $80 for Tears of the Kingdom anyway. So, you know,
Look, these, that scope element and how big the games are, it affects so many things. And one thing that might be interesting, the more abstract a video idea is, the more I feel like I should research elements of it to kind of bring some, I don't know, statistics or data to the discussion. But now I'm so curious about how the duration between events in a game impacts how we feel about it. Like your bit about linearity, there's probably something there that is related to the stretched out playtime of a Tears of the Kingdom. Because if the world was smaller, but still a little open world, like, or still free flowing as far as your direction goes, it would have more of the familiar feeling to you. So, anyways, just a little something, kind of rambling now, but I'm really curious about, just because these games being bigger, it's not necessarily that they're not linear. That is maybe people's problem, but just, God, it takes me like 20 hours before I'm at the next part, as opposed to 1 or 2. And in the 1 or 2 hours in an old Zelda game, that is driven by plot progression, item progression, and specific things that the characters are telling Link. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the separation between the main quest points is open world. It's scaling a mountain that no one told you to scale. So, yeah.
If I compare it to Oblivion, to like, I by that point I've closed 2 Oblivion gates, you know, like 3 Oblivion gates, and I've gotten to the next town, and I have a quest, you know, and so I don't, you know, and I'm not going to go back and play Oblivion today. You know, I know that Microsoft's always putting on sale $5. I'm like, $5. Listen,
Still,
I could do better with $5. You know, this should just be a free game at this point. But I'm open-minded. You know, when the time is right, when I feel ready to invest into that type of experience, I will. You know, I'm doing that with NES Zelda right now. You know,
yeah,
it's great.
I think that Tears of the Kingdom, at the very least, is going to throw so much at the longtime fans of the series that there's something there to enjoy. And my only hope, if they're not going to enjoy the whole experience, is that it's a justifiable purchase, even if they drop the game early, because these games are expensive.
Well, you've succeeded in enticing me. You know, I'm more interested in at least trying it. And I don't, you know, to justify a purchase, this is a separate convo, but I don't need to beat a game to
Hmm.
justify me having bought it. I forget what I
You
was
have,
thinking about that with. Oh, it's Sega Genesis game. It was like a spaceship shooter. I like spaceship shooter games,
yeah.
and it's hard as nails, but it was so much fun. And I was thinking about like I didn't seem to spend that much on it, but they're rare, collectible, and I was just thinking about like you know it's it's like the achievement or the completion thing. It's
Yeah.
just a badge, and that doesn't detract from your experience with something.
And you did mention a couple times that you still thought some games were good, but you hadn't beaten them yet,
Hmm.
even in this discussion. Yeah. So yeah, that's good. That I'm glad that you can do that. For me, it's like I'm leaving a splinter in my skin or something when I abandon a game without beating it. It's just like, oh God, I gotta pull it out. Gotta address that nagging issue. That's good. Good to hear, though.
The real
Awesome.
torture is it's just going through it. You ever read a book like all the way through that's just like miserable? Like just I
Yeah.
don't want to turn another page. Just,
Yeah.
I can't.
Called Catcher in the Rye.
Really, Catcher in the Rye did it for
Worst
you.
high school assignment ever. Catcher in the Rye. Ugh.
Oh, let me close this so we can go to general sections. All right, that Legend of Zelda, Legend of Leo. Find this man on YouTube. Click his name. It's here. It's hyperlinked in the title for more excellent content. He's got a ton of videos on Tears of the Kingdom. All you Tears of the Kingdom fans out there, go check him out. Go tell me if I should play it, if I shouldn't play it. I'll listen. I'll read your all the comments.
I'm looking forward to reading those comments too. Hope there's going to be some good ones on this video. Yeah.